So thank you very much for coming along this afternoon. My name's Jane Humphreys and I'm a Senior Career Consultant with LHH. And I work predominantly in the CT area, but also more increasingly so in retirement as I hurtle towards that space myself. So it's something that I'm passionate about and really interested in, and sharing that information with you this afternoon. And I shall hand you across now to Anne, who will do the introductions as well.
Thanks, Jane. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this Future Focus session. My name's Anne Shields. I'm also a Senior Career Consultant with LHH with a specialism on retirement. So similar to Jane, we work with all kinds of candidates on career transition, but more recently we've kind of moved towards a level of expertise on retirement. Similar to Jane, I'm hurtling towards that space, so I have a personal interest in it, but generally we love to support our candidates in this space because I find that it's really quite interesting. They're all doing amazing things generally. So, quick introduction to the agenda today. As I mentioned, we've got an hour. It may not take that long. We have got room at the end for any questions, so do pop any questions, thoughts, comments. We're really keen to look at them into the Q&A box at the bottom, and we'll come to all of those at the end. So the agenda, we're going to start off just a general open platform, things to consider. Then looking at a reality check, anything that we may have missed, starting to really get ready and think about our plans and what we need to think about, and then just pulling it all together in terms of a plan, next steps. So before we start, we've just got a quick question for everyone. There are no breakout rooms or any big exercises or anything. There's lots of things for you to think about. Hopefully it's quite thought-provoking. So handy if you've got pen, paper handy. But we're just going to ask you a quick question and just share a quick poll with you, if you wouldn't mind popping a response in here. We're keen to just see where you're personally up to at the moment in terms of your retirement plans. And I know for some of you that might be absolutely way off, but some of you may be, you know, it's not too far off, maybe next 5 to 10 years. And we know that as busy HR professionals, there are always 3 million other things to think about, and teams of employees that you're supporting and senior leadership teams. It's not always easy to have that time to look at your own plans and your own space. You can see all about major. I don't think it allows us to see the results. That's absolutely fine. Oh, there you go. You shared it for me. Perfect. Okay, interesting. So yeah, kind of as we expected, really. A little bit of a mix. Yeah, not at all. Again, quite normal unless you're in that space. Some, yeah, 50%, 51% have started with some planning. Brilliant. And some, yeah, understandably not really looked at it at all yet. No problem. Thank you, everybody, for sharing that. So typically when Jay and I work in this space with a lot of individuals within LHH who are looking at their plans, the typical questions and phrases and comments come up time and time again. And here's just a snapshot of some of them, really. So what will I do to fill my days? I'm used to having a really busy job and career, which often we've loved. And so to suddenly think about moving that and taking that away can feel a massive change and can feel quite empty. So this is why it is so important to plan your retirement. Do I really want to work? Maybe I want to cut down, maybe I want to work part-time, and maybe I'm happy to do something on a voluntary basis. So just one of the many questions that you will probably start to ask yourself. Really important, what will give me meaning and purpose? Probably you've gained that from your full-time role at the moment. And in the absence of that, what are you going to fill that gap with? It's really important. It's not just about the financial part. Yes, that's important. But to give you a sense of purpose, to ensure that you're having a great time in your retirement, you really need to think about what you're going to reintroduce into your retirement space. Will I become invisible? That's a big one. What am I going to call myself? People are used to having a certain level of status, and they're proud of that, understandably. You've built a strong career and worked really, really hard to achieve that status. And then now, all of a sudden, what do I call myself? Will people not want to talk to me anymore because I don't have that important role within my business or within my organisation? So yeah, what will I call myself? That's a question we get asked a lot. I wish I'd begun to prepare for this 10 years ago. I think when I started to look at my pension pot, that was a question, not a question, a statement I certainly said. I think with the financials, it is really important to start sooner, but it's never too late. If you feel that you maybe haven't done enough in this space, you want to maybe start doing AVCs, additional voluntary contributions, or anything else, my advice would be just don't put it off, dig out the paperwork and go and look at it now. It's never too late to maybe make additional contributions or to start to refocus on your financial planning. When I miss my work colleagues, yeah, that one is a regular topic. And yeah, understandably, I think I would too. But again, we can replace them. Well, we can keep in touch with them, obviously. We can set up our own separate WhatsApp groups. Maybe you'll have more time to meet with them for coffee or after work drinks. And I'm sure you will make new friends as well. And I want to do something different, but what? Absolutely. It's a whole new change. It's a whole new way of living, and it can be a real positive thing. But as we're going to talk about in more depth, it really does take a certain amount of planning to achieve that goal. So we will help you look at different options and really get into a great place with your retirement, hopefully. I think that's all of the drop downs there. I'm going to pass over to Jane now. Thanks.
Okay, lovely. So thank you, Anne. So things to consider. What I would say before going into the next slide is that, reiterating what Anne was saying, HR professionals are notoriously bad at looking after themselves and putting themselves first. They will always focus on the business and on their team and on the people they're supporting. So it's almost giving yourself permission to start putting yourself first as much as you can, and certainly spending time to think about what's important to you. So this is me giving you permission to do that. So when you're looking at some questions to consider, the first one most people think about is, what does retirement actually mean to me? And what I'd like you to do is quickly jot something down. What is it that actually, when you think about retirement, does it fill you with dread? Does it fill you with joy? Is there a mix of both? Does it depend on the day, how you're feeling? And it might be that you're a long way away from it, so it might not actually mean anything to you at the moment. But those of you who are heading towards it and there quite soon, how do you feel about it? I think the other thing to bear in mind is that you need to remember what it is you actually get from your work outside of the financial security. It offers a lot of other things to you. So there's purpose and meaning, as Anne was saying, there's camaraderie, there's interaction with other people and ages and cultures and different perspectives and opinions. There's being a focal point. There's also that structure it provides. There's the reason for getting up in the morning, that sense of recognition, perhaps, the ability to be able to change things and make things better for people as well, opportunities to challenge yourself and continue to learn. And it also provides a definition between the week and the weekend. So there's a lot more to your role than just the job itself. So have a think about what is important to you, and some of those priorities or some of those things which you think are important now may change as you head towards that space. And sometimes when you get to retirement, think something's missing. Have a think about what it was that filled the day and gave you that satisfaction, that completeness when you were working, and often see how you can replace it moving forward. And with that is thinking about when I look back at my career, what will the highlights be? What is there still left to do? Are there projects I want to get involved in? Are there things I want to learn? Are there other promotions I want before I get into that space? And be honest with yourself. If you feel that you've done everything you need to do, that's great, but there might be other opportunities that you hadn't thought about that present themselves. Everyone's got hopes, dreams, ideas. It's helping you to build on your career goals and your career plans. And do you actually have a timeline for when you want to retire? Often you could be pushed, these plans can be pushed out owing to financial considerations or things that crop up which are completely unexpected. Nobody has that crystal ball, so we don't exactly know what's going to be happening. But we can start making plans, but also have some degree of flexibility in them. Some people are often prone to that one more year syndrome. So you might actually feel, I know when I want to retire, but actually maybe I'll wait another year, just fill the coffers a little bit more. But is it because of that, or is it because you haven't really thought how you're going to spend your day when you get there? So it could be quite, what is it that's motivating you and moving you forward? And also think about how your friends and family thinking about your retirement. Talk to people about it. It's really important to do that. And how are you going to manage this transition, which is something Anne will come on to shortly. It's a significant change. And I think people often underestimate how different it is from being in the workplace to being in the retirement space. So some of the boxes here, it'd be interesting for you to have a look at that and see, in all honesty, where are you at the moment? So have you thought about what you want to do and when you want to do it? Have you thought about what you want to do, but not thought about when you're going to do it? And then how will you know when is the right time as well? Have you thought about when you want to retire, but not necessarily what you want to do when you get there? And I think that that's actually one that you need to think about, how you're going to fill those days. It's great having that timelessness, that sense of space, that freedom, but actually that unstructured day can feel quite unsettling after a while. The first 2 or 3 weeks, it's great, you can do what you want. But then if you think this is going to be the next 25 years of my life, that's probably not going to sit so comfortably with you. And then there are those who haven't considered anything yet. So it's important to start thinking about what you're going to do. And this is really what fills you with joy. The beauty of retirement is that you get to do what you want when you want, within reason. Obviously, there are considerations for family commitments around, but you get to choose how you structure your own day. So start thinking about what is it that gives you that joy, what gives you that purpose, what gets you out of bed in the morning. I was speaking to somebody recently who decided that she hated the gym. She didn't want to go to the gym, but she put she went 3 times a week because she knew that if she didn't do those things, she didn't have that discipline in her life, she would not really do anything. She would get out of bed at midday, but going to the gym meant she had to get out of bed. She had that commitment, and it had the added bonus that she was fit enough then to enjoy her retirement. But unbeknownst to her, she then obviously met other people and therefore expanded her network. And then going to the gym became a joy. So try things now. Don't wait until you're nearly in your retirement space when you think, oh, I've waited 5 years to do this, but I don't really like it. Try it now. If you don't like it, try something else. And then, okay, next one. Oh, sorry. Beg your pardon. So just starting to look. So if you actually have really got a good plan as well, you've already decided, you know exactly what your time is going to look like, how you're going to fill your day, but also think about what it is what happens if those plans fall apart. So have you got a sort of a plan B at all? And how flexible are those plans? If you do decide that you want to change your plans, that's absolutely fine. Nothing has to be set in stone, but you do want to make sure that those actions are starting to take shape and move forward. So have a look at where you are. And this is actually quite a useful checker just to see, once you've started this process, how far advanced are you? What other things do you need to be doing and thinking about? And as I say, try things and just see how you feel about them. It's quite a different concept when you're in retirement. You don't have to have that work ethic in the same way you do when you're working. You can try things. If you don't like it, you can leave it. You can be quite fickle in how you approach things. But it also gives you that freedom to try different things without having to be tied into it. And this is often why a lot of people want to do voluntary work when they move into this space, because they feel that they can have a go. They're not fully committed to it in terms of they're having to give every day of their lives to it. They can pick and choose when they want to do it, depending on the kind of voluntary work you want to do. But it sometimes appeals to people because it has that freedom. But we'll have a look at some of the other things you want to perhaps consider when you head towards this place.
I'm just thinking of your lady in the gym, Jane. That comes up quite a lot, doesn't it? I'm quite impressed. Quite a few people that we've spoken to have said that they really prioritised health and fitness for the first sort of 3 or 6 months because they had more time to exercise, to walk, they'd lost weight, they were eating better because they had time to cook from scratch and things. And I said, oh, I just thought I'd lie on the couch and eat chocolates and watch Netflix. They put me to shame. I'm thinking, yeah, we can do great things with our health and fitness.
Yeah. I think you can lie on the couch and watch Netflix a few times, but I think after a while the novelty will wear off. And you'll probably struggle to get off the couch if you continue to eat all that chocolate. So yes, but that's the beauty of it. You can shape it how you want it to look. This is your plan and your future, and you have no constraints which your current role has. So you have that routine of your own that you can create. Thank you. So the next slide that we'll be looking at is these are some of the areas that we discussed with our candidates. So this is really first-hand experience from them that we're going to be sharing with you and how they feel about some of the statements that we're going to be looking at. So the first one, later life retirement, is not that different to what it was 10 years ago. The vast majority of our candidates will disagree with this statement and say, yes, it is actually very different. People are generally retiring a little bit earlier if they can. They're living better, they're living longer, they're generally healthier, and there's an expectation that they want to do more when they're actually in that space as well. There is more opportunity for them to do things, and often, you know, if you're 55, you've got 20 plus years of being really active out there as well. The other thing to bear in mind is that technology is allowing people who might not necessarily be able to be part of a community, allow them access to that as well. So the shape of how retirement is emerging is quite different. And as I say, people are expecting to have more from things. The closer people get, the more they become ambivalent. A lot of this depends on how you depart from your organisation. If it's a challenging exit, then this is probably true. If you have a plan, you know what you want to do, and you have a strategy in place as to how you're going to spend your time, then you're probably becoming much calmer about the prospect of it. You will always have a wobble, think, have I made the right decision? Am I doing the right thing? But that sort of sense checks what you're doing and what your plans are. So it's actually quite a good thing to have that in the background, just to double check, am I doing everything I want to do? And you don't have to stuff your day full of everything straight from the get-go. You want to start experiencing different things and populating your diary in a different way as you go through this process. Generally, if you are self-aware, you have got coping mechanisms in place if there's significant change in your life, and therefore this is another significant change, and the chances are that all of those will come into play, and then you'll feel far more confident about going out there and getting on with life and deal with all the challenges it presents itself. Something of a sweeping statement here, and I think one of the things is that the pandemic has shown us that we just don't know what's going to be around the corner. That said, generally, if you tend to live well, you exercise well, you eat well, you're probably going to carry on living like that in the future, despite what Alice says. She's not going to change completely. So I think that if you've already have that instilled in you, then the chances are that you will continue to do that. If you recognise that you do live on chocolate and crisps, you might want to start to introduce a slightly different lifestyle in terms of what you're eating and how much exercise you're having, so that you can actually enjoy the retirement space as much as you possibly can. The most satisfied people in later life hobbies, activities and causes. This is actually very true. This is what our candidates are telling us. And the causes part is looking at the volunteering side of things. people want to give something back. You've spent a lifetime developing your skills, your knowledge, your experience. You might not be ready to let all of them go, but you might not want to stay in a corporate environment. But using those skills in a different environment where you feel valued and know you can actually offer something of real benefit to a community or to an organization, which is more of your choosing and aligned to your values, would give you great satisfaction. And going back to developing hobbies that you might not have used for a long time, think actually I'm quite interested in that. How's it changed over the years? The voluntary bit's quite interesting. I was speaking to somebody recently again who said that she really wanted to do voluntary work and she was enjoying it, but she did have to come to terms with the fact that she was offering her skills for free. She was used to having a price on her head, as such, to put it bluntly. So she felt that she was using the skills in a way that she enjoyed, but it took her a while to realize that she was actually giving all of this knowledge away. And once she had actually accepted that, she then found great fulfillment and satisfaction in doing it. Yes, this is actually one of the things our candidates are telling us, that it is quite hard to create a new structure in your life. Your structure at the moment is defined by your organisation. You know what you're going to be doing between certain hours, and if your diary is particularly full, looking to the future and it's empty, how am I going to populate it? So it's probably an idea to think about putting at least one thing a day in there, something to look forward to, and then you can structure your days around that one activity. But you can also do nothing. It's all right to have days when there's nothing in the diary. The danger is that if that day becomes the norm, it can be very unsettling. So as you're heading towards a retirement space, put things in place so you have those things to look forward to. And one other thing is if you're going to be doing some traveling, one thing that people do when they come back from their travel is they're actually no further forward. They've spent all their time planning for that particular event. They come back and think, well, now what? So again, put things in place so you've got things to look forward to when you come back from your travels. Preparing CV is a waste of time. Again, our candidates have said no, they really do need it. It may never see the light of day. It may sit in that bottom drawer and just gather dust. But actually, it's useful on a number of reasons. If you're looking to do voluntary work, you might well need a CV. If you're looking to do non-executive directorships or consultancy, or you're looking to do a part-time role, you will almost certainly need a CV. So it's absolutely not a waste of time. Not wanting to be too macabre, often people, when they have their CV put together, it's a useful document to include with your will. So people in future generations may know what you did. Sorry, they will know when you were born and when you died, but they might not know what you did in the intervening years. So it's quite useful, bearing in mind the world of work is changing so much. Having a document like that to refer to will just be useful for them, to remind them who you were. And also when you have wobbles and think, who am I? Did I do anything of any value? It reminds you of what you actually contributed to your employers. This is an interesting one. People think, I've got enough friends, thank you, I don't need any more. But are they going to be available on a Thursday afternoon at 2 o'clock if you want to go for a coffee? Or are they still working? So you may well need to expand your social networks. You also may want to have those different perspectives as well. So people have different opinions. Within work, you automatically get a variety of cultures, ages, perspectives. And it's quite important to maintain that because it keeps you mentally active and mentally engaged and interested. So have a look and see the people that you know, are they going to provide that for you? And if not, have a look and think, well, maybe I do need to expand that. And it's a good opportunity to get involved in the local community as well, just to see what's going on. If you're busy people, you might not have had a chance to do that yet, but it's worth putting that toe in the water just to see what's happening. Always paid work available for retirees? Absolutely there is. It comes in many forms. And if you want to drive a pharmacy van around a couple of days a week, brilliant. But if you want to carry on using your professional skills in some way, you'll need to think about maintaining your professional network as well. So if after 18 months you think, actually, I miss miss this, I miss being that focal point, I miss having that collaboration, that camaraderie. You might want to go back into work. Picking up where you left off is quite hard. So keeping your network, your professional network warm is important. But not everybody will want to go back into work. But it's also, there are roles out there. They may not be similar to the ones you're used to doing, but then if you're looking for that, you might not be looking in the retirement space anyway. But the portfolio life is something that a lot of people, when they head into this space, consider. So they do a little bit of voluntary work, a bit of paid work, and then the rest of the time is theirs to do what they want. And finally, the majority of retirees are content with their new lives. I think nobody has, again, has got that crystal ball. You don't know what's going to be happening. But to be honest, if you have got a plan, if you know that you've got things in place, you know that they're addressing your values and what's important to you, then yes, they will be content. There is an 18-month wobble time where people can look and think, is this it? I've spent 18 months creating this new version of my life, and this is all I've achieved. Am I happy with it? I think as you go along the way, just check to make sure that your values are being addressed, that sense of purpose is being addressed, that reason to get out of bed in the morning is identified. You can tweak things as you go along. You can add things to the mix. You can take things away. As I say, you can try it. If you don't like it, dispense with it. Introduce something new so that you do start to create that life. And it does take a while to get it right. It does take probably 18 months to get it so that it's looking shape in a way that's going to be right for you. Anything to add to any of that, Anne? If I missed anything with that?
No, don't think so. I've got a few more bits to cover a bit later on, but no, it's great, thanks.
So the multi-stage life, somebody like myself, the 3-stage model is probably the one that I work towards more, but people now increasingly are looking at the multi-stage life where there's more flexibility is what you do. Before it used to be very specific: education, work, retirement, very defined. It's becoming increasingly fluid and flexible as to how people behave in the workplace and how they live their lives in terms of how they generate an income and how they learn and develop themselves. So as we know, people are living into their 90s quite easily. So retirement, just pipe and slipper stuff is a thing of bygone days. So people who are heading towards retirement often will want to carry on working in some capacity. They may want to carry on learning as well to keep those grey cells busy. But people in their 30s and 40s are quite likely to want to go travelling. People in their 40s and 50s are likely to want to go back to opportunities to go back to college and continue their education. And in retirement, people in their 60s and 70s are almost reinventing their careers in some ways. So there are no hard and fast rules about how you can actually live your life. It's very fluid, it's very flexible, and it really is guided by what is going to motivate and shape you, what is important to you. So have a look at this. Linda Grattan is excellent. So looking at how different ways you can actually live that life and introduce lots of different elements to it. So it's lots of different things going on at any given time. So it's not just that 3-stage approach on the left. And I shall hand you back to Anne.
Thank you, Jane. Perfect. How are we doing for time? Okay, on target. Okay, so yeah, starting to look at getting ready. Next slide. Thanks, Maida. So I'm sure you've all seen numerous versions of various change models. And this change is up there with everything else. It can potentially be really just obviously a big change that can throw a lot of people. Hence all the planning that we try to support our candidates with. So with each of these change curves, there will be an end, a period of exploration and preparation, and then ultimately new beginnings as we start with the new normal. So that ending here can be quite difficult. We see it time and time again. It's kind of a leap of faith. All the candidates I work with, they're never 100% certain that they've got enough money in the pension pot, they've got enough, things to fill their time that will give them meaning and purpose. They're kind of dabbling with this idea for a period of time before they actually sort of, make that leap of faith. And that's normal. It's very rare, I think, for people to think, no, I'm absolutely fine. I'm 100% clear that this is the right transition for me. And then that period in the middle, as Jane's described, it can be for 12, 18 months, up to 2 years, really, where people start to explore and maybe start to, look at new opportunities and then settle into their new norm. So I think it's important for you to just be quite self-aware and think about how you handle that change. Is it something that you might need a little bit more help and support with? Or how open are you to learning new things, meeting new people, and what gives you energy? Thanks, Maida. So a time now may be that you need to just reflect again and think about strengthening resources in different areas. So skills and knowledge, you will have skills and knowledge that have made you productive and successful. You've probably, I don't know whether you've been in HR for all of your careers, but you will have reached a certain level within your careers. And I think HR skills are highly transferable. Loads of great traits and aptitudes that you can take in various different directions. So those professional networks might really come into play at this point. So important that you do keep up with your connections. So opportunity as well, just to think about what's next. It could lead you to a different career path. I was reading something recently that said, we never really grow up. We don't grow up to some point and just stop. We will continually learn things and try new things and move into a different direction. So it's just this retirement is really just a new phase of growth and different priorities. Similar with well-being, it's not just the physical. It's really important that we look after ourselves mentally as well. This now might be an opportunity for you to focus on different areas. You might have more time now to maybe spend with some friends who might be in need, or you just haven't had time to spend quality time with them while you've been busy working. More time with the family. It might be that you have older parents now that you are quite responsible for, or even younger grandchildren. Or you might be a time that you want to give something back to your local community. And lastly, again, just your aptitude, just to have that self-awareness. How flexible and adaptable are you? How resilient are you in handling this change? Because it's not always easy. As Jane mentioned earlier, it takes a while to get settled into that new norm. So think about your capacity to create different networks. Really important to try and be open that up and maybe not just stay with the same set of friends and networks, and just be quite open to new experiences and new learnings. I always just share the example, just briefly, a friend of mine who retired in her mid-50s, like many of us, had been busy with her job and bringing up her family. And she felt that she had lots of time on her hand. And she decided to try her local bowling club, just Crown Green Bowling, much to the amusement of her husband and her family, all sort of giggling that Debbie was doing this bowling. Anyway, she ended up absolutely loving it, met loads of new friends, is now the captain. She's called Dangerous Deb, apparently, and it's just opened up a whole new social network for us. So, you need to be open, I think, to new opportunities. Thanks, Maida. So in your own time, really, I think, again, it's time to just, grab a pen and paper and think about any areas or something that's maybe standing out for you. A time for just personal reflection. Is it any skills and knowledge, something that you need to brush up on, or something new to learn that's going to help you move into that retirement space? Is it time to spend on health and well-being, and just that self-awareness again around your aptitude with learning new things? So moving into next steps now and really starting to formulate the plan. What do the next 5 to 10 years look like? So a big checklist here, and the ones that you can see instantly now are our sort of core values, the ones that are really, really important to us. And if you can just drop down the other majors, please. I'd like you to just review these quickly and just think off the top of your head. You don't have to share them. You can put them in the chat if you like, or again, just put them down on paper for your own awareness, and you can go back to this. Think of your top 5. What do you think out of all of these, this checklist, are most important to you? The ones that maybe you need to spend a bit more time and energy on. And I'm sure we've all got different perspectives and different priorities. You'll notice over on the right-hand side, the values one is in a bigger hexagon, because that's something that we found is really, really important to our candidates. It's not just about the pension pot. We find more as people enter further into their retirement years, the financials become less important, and it's more about the time and things that give them meaning and purpose, things that align to their values. So just have a quick think about your top 5. Because generally work in your career has given you that meaning and purpose. And if that goes and you move into the retirement space, you need to think about how you can fill that gap. Next one, please, Maida. So some great questions now, again, just to ask yourself and give you a few moments. I know when I first came across these, it literally made me sort of step back and think and thought, oh, wow, I never had time to do what I love. I was always too busy with my job and bringing up my children and looking after everybody else. But now, how lovely that I could maybe have time to do what I love. And for me, instinctively, I thought about badminton. I used to play badminton in my 20s, which I loved. I was a member of a team, made great friends there, and various other things. So do take time to think, what do I love? Give myself some space and some time to do what I'd love to revisit. And what am I good at? What am I known for? What's my sort of USP? Where can I add value? Maybe what does the world need from me? Do I need to give something back? And what can I be rewarded for? Sometimes not just financial as well. We get great feedback from people who do some voluntary work, just the feel-good factor. They feel great from helping out, doing some good and meeting new people again. So questions to ask yourself. So what next? 3 main points, really, 3 main areas that you need to ask yourself. Have you had the conversation with your partner and with your family? Ultimately, it probably is your choice, but just be aware that those dynamics within the family and in your relationship could well change. There could be wobbles there. The children might start thinking, oh gosh, mum or dad's retiring. How's that going to be for me? Will things change? Will we not be able to go on a family holiday anymore? So I think it's important to set their expectations and have an open and honest conversation, and certainly with your partner. Have you reviewed your finances? We've mentioned this throughout the presentation, really. Obviously, it's important. There's lots of financial advice available. We use an independent organisation to support our candidates, which is great. And there are lots of places that you can look online. Pension Bee, lots of places to look to find maybe any old pension pots that you need to bring all together in one space, and also to check if your state pension is where it needs to be as well. And lastly, really importantly, have you had the conversation with your company about your career path? This is why we were really keen to come here today, because we found with lots of candidates, they found that conversation really difficult, as if it was a kind of taboo subject and you really couldn't talk about it, because Jane referred to it already as one more year, the OMY syndrome. And you don't want to be there as if, I'm just hanging on for a package, or I'm just hanging on to a certain date when I can take my pension. You need to help with maybe succession planning and feel as if you've got a great relationship with your manager or with HR, and have an open conversation about where you think you fit within the business. and how long you're hoping to remain there until you retire. And maybe you want some nice staggered couple of years to head towards retirement, which is always a great plan. If you're able to maybe reduce your days, maybe down to 4 days or 3 days ultimately, it really helps you to transition into that retirement space. So just starting to summarise, pull it all together now. Areas for consideration, obviously consider your timeline. You don't have to have it exact. Things change, there are external factors. Again, I remember working with a lovely lady who worked for BT for 30 years. She'd planned her retirement and her date to the nth degree. And when that decision and that choice was taken away from her by way of restructures and redundancies, she was so devastated. But once we had a few conversations, once she reviewed her finances, talked to her husband, etc., things weren't that different. It wasn't that bad. So have some flexibility there, but always great to have some kind of plan and timeline in place. Assess your current situation in work, anything that's left to do, anything left to prove. What great legacy would you like to leave within your business or within your team? What do your friends, your family, your partners think? Keep up that conversation. Often it's really, really useful to get their input. Any resources that you might need to really help you prepare for this transition, broadening your networks or your social contacts, any skills development and knowledge. And then finally, really start to try and devise and develop your plan. I think initially we were saying sort of 10 years here, and we decided that's maybe a little bit tricky to look that far ahead. So maybe look in the first instance, at least for the next sort of 2 to 5 years or longer. And then in summary, our top tips, again, all our lovely candidates that often come back to some of our events and work as alumni panelists and share their tips. And this list is no way exhaustive. They have tons and tons of great advice for us. So we talked already about planning ahead. It can't be a quick fix, an overnight thing. You really need to plan ahead. Map out your aims, really think about how that retirement is going to look for you. Be very individual. Try not to compare yourself to colleagues and friends. We're all very different. Start to establish a sense of purpose now and address your values. Maybe start to think about developing new friendships. I've just started line dancing on a Monday evening, starting to make new friends already. People are at a similar age and in a similar space, and it's really nice to do that. Increase your financial stability if you need to, or certainly look at where you're at. Stay positive and stay healthy. This really could be a great transition, and we're really keen for you to squeeze every juice out of your retirement journey. As Jane mentioned, you could be in this for 25 or 30 years or even more. Lots of people are living well into the 90s nowadays. So lots of great resources around that we can share with you. The first one is a quick, it's 15-minute TED talk. It's really great, by Dr. Riley Moynes. And he's very much about squeezing the juice out of your retirement. And he says that lots of people prepare you initially financially, all about the pension pot. And he's really keen to say it's not just about that. You need to prepare psychologically. And then he summarises it really nicely. So potentially you could be living a third of your life in retirement, and that there's a framework. There's 4 stages or 4 phases of retirement. I'll let you watch it there. I won't give you all the detail. Some great books there that Jane and I and other members of the team have read. That, something that you're looking at or you're interested in, lots of great hints and tips and advice and guidance on a really positive retirement plan. At the bottom, a couple of great websites that we often use. Restless, I'd say, is my favourite. It was devised by a guy who noticed that his father was retiring at mid-50s, and he thought there's hardly any resources online. So he actually built restless, and he's brilliant. He's worked with us before as a guest speaker. So I have the app on my phone. There's financials on there. There's voluntary work. There's part-time work. There's even things like, you know, your 5 best slow cooker recipes this winter. Really diverse range of information on there. And I think 55 Redefined is similar.
Right, and when we look at this photograph, and you can either think one of two things. You can either think that the mere thought of retirement has exhausted this pair and they just can't really engage in the process at all. But what we'd rather think is that they have lived life to the full, and they have actually now having a bit of a rest because they've had such a full day, week, month, years ahead. And we'd much rather you did that rather than the former. So I'm hoping that you'll be able to, as they say, squeeze every last drop out of your retirement and live it to the fullest.
Okay. Favourite picture.
Thank you, Anne and Jane. Some really interesting insights there. So we're opening up the chat box or the Q&A now for any questions or comments that you might like to share with Jane and Anne.
I did notice that there was a question from Paulina about how can businesses prepare and help employees who are considering retirement. I think one of the main things is be open about it, talk about it, don't make it a taboo subject so it lurks in the shadows. Bring it out into the open, and make sure that people don't feel that if they raise the subject, it's almost as if they're looking to leave immediately. They're thinking about it, they're planning it. One of the things that we offer our candidates is a monthly retirement networking forum. So they all come together and they talk about what's on their mind, what their concerns are, what their plans are. So it helps them to get some thoughts out there. And I think it's really important to talk to people rather than just think about this stuff. Write it down, document it, but most importantly, talk to people. So whilst it might be impractical to do a monthly session for yourselves and for your employees, it might be something that you want to introduce on a reasonably regular basis so that there's a check-in point for those who are heading towards that space and they can talk comfortably about what their plans are.
Question here, Jane and Anne. I appreciate there's an individual decision, but is there an average age for retirement?
Interesting one. I'm just saying no. My view is when I first started working with people in this space, usually they were in the 60s, early to mid 60s. I've noticed a trend now that we're seeing quite a lot of people in their 50s, mid to late 50s, even slightly earlier. That's my view, Jane. Would you say similar or?
Yeah, I think if people can afford to retire, they will like to do so if they've got plenty to keep them occupied. But often people still want to contribute. They might be of a retirement age and not ready to give it all up, or they might leave and then go back again. So there's one last thing I want to do before I actually settle into that next space. But it's really hard to say on an average age because there are so many other factors outside of that that are important to consider as well.
We've got a comment here we've got in the Q&A. Retirement seems a long way away since the government keeps putting back the age. I'll end up being 70 by the time I retire, and I don't think I'll have the health for it.
Yeah, that's really difficult.
Yeah, I think for the younger ones, definitely, it just seems so far away. I think all you can do is, focus on the pot and the investment and try and put yourself in a great financial position, maybe, that you won't have to wait until state pension age.
But I think when retirement was first talked about in 1889, the average life expectancy was 46 and retirement age was 70. So working on that, you'd have to be 103 before you would actually now be able to retire. So hopefully things have changed a little bit in our favour, but it still is a challenge for a lot of people. So I think it's being able to do as much as you can that you enjoy, even while you're working, if you possibly can. Any other?
Going back to the previous question that we had, how can businesses prepare people for retirement? I think all of us in the team at LHH are sort of avid career activists, and one of the things we'd advocate is that organisations can encourage career conversations. And they should be an integral part of supporting people in their careers within companies. And actually, retirement doesn't have to be a separate conversation. It should be part of that long-term career planning. I think for not just HR teams, but for line managers, to make a safe environment where people can feel that they can talk to their manager about their plans. Maybe they don't necessarily want to work quite as hard. They may still want to contribute to a team, but maybe, as Jane and Anne have articulated, maybe 4 days a week or 3.5 days a week, or perhaps not get involved in some of the faster paced projects. So I think for organisations, really, any discussion around retirement, which people do tend to tippy-toe around for a number of reasons, should be part of just that overall purpose behind general career conversations.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Any other questions, folks?
Did we have a final poll to share as well? Mead, I don't know if you want to pop that up while you can think of any final questions. Just interested to see if it's helped you to really think about your plans. Don't worry if it hasn't. Lots of takeaways, hopefully. Thank you. Are you able to share that, Maida, as well, like the first one? Great. More clarity now. Brilliant. 84%. Already started exploring. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Brilliant. Good. What's the result, I think? Any last question? I don't think, was there a question around the slides? I don't think we're sharing the slides, but there is a recording. Time planning conversation framework for businesses to work with. Not as such, to my knowledge.
Yeah, I think it's part of the career mobility sort of work that we encourage organisations to do. So it isn't actually, as I say, necessarily dedicated to retirement, but it is more around career conversations where people feel confident enough to talk about, I'm not thinking about retirement, but I'm thinking about how I progress in this role or how I progress within the organisation. We don't actually advocate a particular framework or a structure. It is more around training and educating line managers around meaningful career conversations, because retirement should be an integral part of that. Interesting question there. Are organisations encouraged to consider broaching this conversation with employees that they feel seem to be nearing retirement age? That's quite a tricky one.
Tricky one, yes.
Yeah. I mean, technically, not actually the right thing to approach people around retirement. But again, circling back to the career conversations, there shouldn't be any surprises. I think if there are those meaningful conversations within organisations around careers and how people feel within their role, then actually there should be an indication on both sides of the conversation about what people's thoughts are. Are they slowing down? When do they think they want to start pulling back a little bit? But no, I personally, with the experience of working with many of our clients, I think this is quite a sensitive area. It's not something that organisations are encouraged to do.
Yeah, I agree. It's interesting. My husband works in construction and works with a guy who's just had his 67th birthday. And my husband's, because I always talk about retirement and things, my husband's talked to him about, you're not thinking of retirement. And he's adamant, he doesn't want to. He loves his job. He seems to still be doing a great job. So, the conversations there don't seem to be happening from both sides, really. So, I agree with Mel. It can be a tricky one. you know, to bring it up. You don't want people to feel as if they're being pushed out.
I think it just needs to be talked about more often, more openly, and be part of, this is part of your career progression with us. You know, ultimately you will head in that space, but until then, let's support you. And when you're ready, let's talk about it, but let's start talking about it sooner rather than later. So there are no secrets. You don't have to feel as if you're talking in the shadows and whispering in corners about it. It's something that is part of your career, moving on to a different space.
And certainly what we've done with some of our clients is to run sessions like this within organisations anonymously, interestingly, where we've run them where participants, employees can attend the sessions without actually sort of registering, because to Jane and Anne's point, you know, there is still this stigma around, you know, somebody's going to be retiring in a year or 2 years, therefore, you know, they're just biding their time. So we have run these future focus sessions just for people to start to get their heads around, do I need to start creating this runway? Do I need to start ramping up my conversations with my line manager in HR, and for organisations to sort of get a feel for how they need to support people as they plan their eventual leaving, and you know, what legacy they want to leave behind.